Hello everyone, and welcome back to Let's Play LSD Dream Emulator. It's kind of funny because my last episode I was planning on making it be my sort of last set, I guess, in this little recording session I have had, but for some reason I've just felt compelled to continue playing, so that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah, I don't know why. I was only planning on making 3 episodes, and for whatever reason I decided I wanted to do some more. And wow, look at this. Yeah, right away we're in a very kind of neon-y landscape. I have no idea what the hell that stuff's supposed to be. But you can really honestly say that about 90% of this game. it's almost impossible to tell what the hell any of this shit is supposed to be. Oh god, I'm sorry if that was on screen. I think it might have been. My mouse, it's gone now though, fortunately. And yeah, what is that? I would restart the episode, but I don't really want to. I feel like if I do that, I'll probably lose everything that was generated for this stream. Alright. And you know what, it wasn't my last episode, but a couple episodes, I kind of talked about psychology a bit, and I don't know, I think it'd be interesting to sort of talk about it some more, just because that's something I really personally find very interesting is psychology, especially because it is like a field that there's a lot more that we can learn about it. And I had a really good psychology teacher too in high school for AP psychology. I had a really, really good teacher. He was a really cool guy, and he taught a lot. Ooh, we're over here again. And one of the things I remember finding really interesting that we had learned about, because every once in a while, I mean, because it was an AP class, we obviously had to do a lot of, boring memorizing of a bunch of stupid shit, but I really liked it because every once in a while he knew of a lot of really interesting like documentaries and videos. And, wow, there's horses. That's the first time we've seen, I think, horses. Admittedly, they're on a very unconventional landscape. Oh, and they're just floating there. Alrighty then. But yeah, he would show us a lot of very interesting documentaries and videos. So he was definitely also he definitely loved what he was teaching. And I think that definitely makes a teacher, when they love what they're teaching, I think it makes all the difference. Because I feel like a lot of teachers, especially with high school, I honestly feel like some of them are just motivated by like, ooh, I get to, be off during the summers, or I guess in some cases, maybe they wanted to be like a mathematician or an engineer, and then they realized I'm too stupid or whatever, so I have to become a professor, or I have to become a high school teacher instead, or I don't know. I don't know what happens with some of those teachers that are assholes, but I guess some of them probably just do it because they know they can be an asshole to kids, which is kind of pathetic. But anyways, yeah, to get on to my main point, my teacher was a really, really nice guy, and he was definitely he definitely loved teaching. And there was this one video I remember watching on an experiment done in psychology, and it was really interesting. Now, there's this one part of your brain, and I know people always talk about being like left-brained or right-brained, and most people I think brush that off, especially nowadays, because it kind of has been taken out of context with some people. But it is actually partially true. I remember I don't remember the exact things that your left brain and your right brain do, but it is true that I think your left brain, I believe, handles more like mathematical, logical tasks, and then I think it's your right brain. I think it might be the other way around. Don't quote me on that though. But I think it might be the other way around. I think your right brain is more logical tasks, and your left brain is more like creative things. And there's some other things, like I think your left brain has more to do with like linguistic capabilities, and your right brain just has more to do with like plain memorization of things and stuff like that. Don't quote me though, because I think it might be the other way around. It might be, I think, left brain. Everything I'm saying for the left brain might be for the right brain instead. So, yeah, don't quote me. So, if I am saying it wrong, just imagine me saying it the other way around. But there's this one part of your brain, actually, that basically, it basically connects the part of your brain, and it's called the corpus callosum, or it connects both of your hemispheres, I should say. and it's called the corpus callosum. And the one thing that I really found interesting with that was that there's been cases, and obviously, especially nowadays, ethically, you can't just like separate someone's corpus callosum. But there's been cases where people have accidentally had it separated, and it's crazy because basically what it does is it basically like it allows the information in your left brain that's being processed and the information in your right brain that's being processed to sort of be allowed to be intermingled, I guess you could say. I guess in a way you could say that I think it's like, I guess you could say your left brain is like the GPU of a computer and the right brain is like a CPU, you know? They both process information, but they both kind of specialize, and they both do process that information in a certain way. Kind of. But anyways, let me actually go into something because I'm just kind of wandering. But anyways, the one thing I remember that was really interesting was that if your corpus callosum is severed somehow, it actually makes it so that it's harder for you to process certain information. And here's the really weird part, is your left hand, I think, or your left hemisphere of your brain actually controls your right eye and your right hand. Basically the left side of your brain controls the right side of your body, and the right side of your brain controls the left side of your body. It's really strange, but that's what that's basically what doctors have observed. And one thing that's really interesting is if you've got both your eyes, you can process the information if your corpus callosum is severed perfectly fine. You know, you won't have any problems. But here's the weird thing. If for whatever reason you lose an eye, or that, and actually that's one thing I'm really wondering, is what happens if someone's corpus callosum is severed and they are blind in one eye? Are they just not able to comprehend certain information, or what? But anyways, I remember how there was this test where they basically blindfolded someone in like their left eye, let's say. Ah, shit, this shadow, man. So they would like blindfold their left eye, let's say, and then they would show them information in their right eye. That was, what did I say? I'm just going to try to be consistent with what I said, even if it is the other way around. I think I said left brain is more creative, or yeah, left brain is more creative and everything, and more about linguistic capabilities. So let's say that you were shown like a math problem or something. I don't know exactly what they showed, and you could only see it in your left eye. Then you could solve it fine. But if it was the other way around, if your right eye was covered, or no, that, I'm sorry, I keep confusing it. And I even remember my teacher, when he was trying to teach it, he was confused by it as well, because having to go between left and right and remembering what each side does, and realizing that your brain switches what part of body it controls, it's confusing. But holy shit, it's a wolf. Well, that was something. Whoa. This is the first time we've been in this area. We've never been here before. Holy shit. Look at this. We're on some like big beam, and there's two faces. There's two mouths we can go into, and there's like a sun thing that was going around. Yeah, there's like a weird, I don't even know, like a weird halo that's going around. Oh. So anyways, basically your brain couldn't process the things that weren't meant for it to process, if that makes sense. So if you were shown, so yeah, I said left brain is more creative things. So if in your right eye you were shown like a math problem, you wouldn't be able to really solve it easily. Or vice versa, if you were like shown, oh, I think your left brain processes words too, like being able to like read and being creative and everything. And I think I remember that if you're like shown, or no, I don't know, it might be your right brain. Like I said, I don't exactly remember this stuff. It's still quite interesting, but I don't remember all the specifics. But yeah, I remember if you're shown in one of your eyes something that side of your brain wasn't meant to process or wasn't able to process, you're not able to comprehend it. But here's the really weird thing I remember. Oh, this was the weirdest part of the experiment. If you were, say, shown a word and the side of your brain that, you know, reads, you couldn't read it. The side of your brain the side of your brain that you read with, if the eye connected to that was, you know, covered up, then you like couldn't understand that word. But here's the weird thing: if they ask you to draw what was in that part of, like if they asked you, okay, can you say the word, you couldn't say it. But if they asked you to draw a picture of the word, the people could actually draw the picture of it, but they wouldn't understand what they were drawing. So like the part of their brain that has to do with creativity, for example, would be able to draw that, and vice versa. They could see a picture, and if they asked you to draw that picture, but the side of your brain that understands pictures if the eye associated with that was covered up, you wouldn't be able to say the word, or you wouldn't be able to draw the word, but you would be able to say it. So you wouldn't be able to visualize it all. It's hard to explain, and it's really, I'd recommend just look it up, okay? I explained it kind of shitty, so look up corpus callosum, I don't know, experiment or something like that. You'll probably find it on YouTube. But it's something I found really weird and interesting, and this is creepy. There's like a face. It looks like these rocks are, oh, that looks like it's, yeah. These are people's faces, but they're all like, I don't know, weirdly contrasted. That's messed up. Everything's a face. Jesus. They're all closed eyes, too. That's freaky as hell. There's a hand. Everything's like a body part in this dream. That's freaking messed up. Oh, it's happening again. Look at that. I'm like getting sent back. I'm not moving. It's weird. Yeah, these dreams are definitely getting more and more messed up. But yeah, personally, I've always found psychology to be pretty interesting. Especially the weird stuff like that. And yeah, I explained that pretty terribly, I'll admit, but I recommend just look it up. Look up a documentary on it. And like I said, it is something that's not very well understood, so there's the possibility that those researchers might have just fucked up. Or they might have just been lying, you know? You never know. But it's kind of crazy how stuff like that happens. What the hell is this? The hell? Why are there two kids? And they're like really weirdly like 3D, but they look real too. It's weird. I think they must have been in a green screen or something. That was a fucked up video. That was weird. So yeah, and I don't know. That was something that I found really crazy. Anyways, though, how about I try to explain? I'm going to talk about something else psychological, but it's something that's a little bit easier to explain that some people probably might not know about. There's, I think, another sort of debate in the psychological community, and it's nature versus nurture. It's, are personality traits something that are inherently like in you gene-wise, or is it something that's sort of put into you as a result of, you know, your parents and the people that raise you? That's definitely a very like big debate. Looks like I was on top of that car. But yeah, that's definitely a very big debate in psychology, and I guess the psychological field, I should say. And the one thing my teacher said, and I really agree with him with this, is he basically said that he personally thinks of it as sort of being 50-50. And he says, like, obviously it's not going to just be 50-50, and it depends on which traits we're talking about, but it just depends, you know? Because I feel like, obviously there's certain, the one thing that you learn about in psychology is how there are certain mental disorders, and obviously the biggest traits of those mental disorders are typically personality things. Like, some people might be very paranoid, some people might be very just untrusting, some people might be, I don't know, angry all the time. There's certain genealogical disorders, I guess you could say. Okay, this is really messed up. Why does this game like showing me faces so much now? Jesus. And what the hell is that? Those look like hands, I think. This is messed up. But yeah, that's sort of a debate that's really popular in the psychological field, and I agree with my teacher, and that's one of the reasons I liked him. Is he's a very, I guess, practical kind of guy. He's a very logical thinker. You know, he thought about things in a very practical manner. I shouldn't say practical. He thought about things in just a logical and sensical manner. You know, he wasn't someone who just thought with his emotions, because I don't really like people that do that, who sort of base everything off of their emotions. And gee, what the fuck? This is messed up. But yeah, personally, I feel if a lot more people thought with their brain instead of whatever hormones are coursing through their body, I feel like this world would be a lot better of a place. Just saying. And yes, I realize that, you know, your brain is influenced by hormones, but I'm just saying, if you just have the willpower to overcome your sort of, I guess, instincts in some cases, I feel like you can just be a better, I don't know, more of a human being and less of an animal, I guess. Because that's kind of the thing that separates us from animals, is that we actually have the willpower to go against some of our hormones and instincts, if we so choose. But anyways, as I was sort of trying to say, one of the documentaries we watched, which was quite interesting, was there was actually I think he was a criminal justice worker or something, and he was basically studying people, and he was using, I think, like MRIs and stuff like that, and all those brain scanning equipments, and he was trying to isolate, you know, what are some things that sort of are only, I guess you can say, what are parts of the brain in a way that can help us determine, like, if someone is a serial killer, pretty much. And he did find out that there are certain traits, like if you do a brain scan, there are certain parts of the brain that are almost always going to be a certain size, or going to be developed in a certain way, that can kind of basically give you, without a reason, you know, without a shadow of a doubt, if someone's going to be like a serial killer. And I remember him thinking, like, you know, oh, this is a crazy development for psychology. You know, we can basically tell what someone's going to be just by doing a brain scan. So that made him sort of think, like, yeah, everything that we are is just our, you know, genes. But here's the crazy thing. He, for one reason or another, ended up having a brain scan of himself done. And for whatever reason, he decided to compare those brain scans of his own, you know, brain to the serial killers. And guess what he found? He found he had some of the statistical, like, parts of his brain, the parts of his brain that sort of statistically were, like, smaller or larger, which is what, you know, showed whether or not someone might have the brain of a serial killer. His were very similar. So basically, from his findings, he was a serial killer. But here's the thing: he's never really hurt anyone. And it kind of made him realize that the reason why he sort of was the way he was just because he was raised in a very good and loving family. And he did admit that, just like most serial killers, he wasn't someone who was very emotional ever. You know, he never really felt that sad when someone died. Like, he didn't feel good about it, obviously, but he said how, like, when someone died in his family, he didn't, like, get uncontrollably emotional about it. He didn't, you know, go crazy. He just kind of accepted it. So he had some of the sort of trademark signs of, you know, what serial killers and just people who enjoy murdering have, but he personally, just because he was raised, you know, by a loving family, and I know this kind of sounds all cliche and everything, but it kind of shows how you might have certain, I guess you can say, genes, or, you know, certain, in some cases, probably diseases or disorders that might cause you to be more likely to fall into a certain group of people, but that doesn't mean jack shit. If you can just, I don't know, use willpower, and if you're just raised in a certain way, and that's kind of the thing, is that if someone's just brought up in the right manner, or if someone just has the willpower to make a change within themselves, you can do it. And yeah, that sounds, I know, really cliche, but it kind of just is kind of a really interesting thing to find out, you know? And that's kind of how I think. Is I know there are, and I actually remember I'm really glad I didn't have the other psychologist professor, or teacher I should say, at my high school, because I remember hearing him, because it was kind of funny. I remember my first year of high school, I had a study hall, and I remember he was in, like, the room right next door to my study hall, and he was a psychology teacher. And it's kind of funny because I remember I could hear him, so, because it was one of those rooms, actually, I don't know if you guys have this, but it was a room that wasn't really a room. It was like a really big room, but they basically just put up like these pretty wide dividers between the two rooms to make them into two different rooms that two different teachers could teach in. So anyways, I remember in my study hall class, the one other psychology teacher that went to that high school, or I shouldn't say went to, but taught at that high school, was in that room, and I remember I could hear all his lectures. And all I have to say is I'm really glad I didn't have him as a teacher, because he was basically one of those psychologists out there that thought with their emotions rather than their brain, to be perfectly honest. Because I actually remember hearing him give a lecture on basically the same thing my professor gave, the thing about nature versus nurture, and it's funny how he let his personal feelings cloud any sort of reason, pretty much. Because I remember he was saying stuff like, oh, do you think that if I, separate a killer's kid from his parent, that he would still become a killer? He's like, of course not. And he used a bunch of examples like that, how like, oh, there's cases of this and that and whatever, trying to basically motivate his own agenda of thinking that, oh, humans are completely determined by how you're raised and blah, blah, blah. And really, he just, I don't know, he was so, in my opinion, he was so narrow-minded that he just sort of let his emotions overcome reason. Because I think one other thing I remember learning is how there's cases where twins that were separated from birth, when they were found out, because they probably had shitty parents or whatever, and then through the adoption system, they just got separated. And there's been cases where, researchers have found these kids, and they've I shouldn't say reunited them, because in some cases I think they reunited them in most cases, but anyways, they examined these separated twins to see if there's anything, similar between them, and they found that identical twins have extremely similar tendencies, like personality tendencies and emotional tendencies and all that, and behavioral tendencies, even if they've been separated their entire lives. And that was something that I found pretty crazy as well. That's the thing, is that a lot of them, they did have really similar lives and they did act very similarly, but at the same time they still had distinct, differences in life. And I think that's as good an example as any. Is that even if you have two people that are basically biologically identical almost, they can have very different lives, but at the same time, I think that just is exemplary. It kind of goes to show you that, sure, not your emotions, sure, life is going to sort of mold you, but at the same time, I guess in a way, kind of like a ball of clay. Sure, you can sort of mold a ball of clay any way you want, but depending on where you got that ball of clay from, it's going to sort of affect what you can do with it exactly. And I don't know, that's a pretty shitty metaphor, I'll admit, but it's just sort of what came to my mind. Holy fucking shit, what is that? I'm sorry, that thing just creeped the hell out of me. I don't know why, but there's so many faces in this game. Like, I don't know what I've done in some of these dreams, but the game just likes to show me faces, and it's kind of creeping me out. It's so weird. So yeah, there's my sort of rants on psychology. I shouldn't say rants. I should just say sort of discussions. But yeah, I personally really find psychology to be an interesting subject, and I honestly think everyone should be required to take a psychological, class at some point in their life, because, at least for me, I feel like it sort of helps me to not only understand others better, but also to sort of understand myself. It kind of just, I don't know. Whoa. Hello, flowers. Goodbye, flowers. Hell? Here again. And of course with a shit ton of seizure-inducing water. Oh, and it's over. That was a short one. Very weird, but it was short. Alright, I'm gonna save the episode right here. I think I accidentally went to... Okay, no, I am on save. For some reason, it looked like I went to load for a split second. And I obviously don't want to be loading anything. Alright, gonna save it right here. So yeah, there's sort of my, I don't know, discussions over psychology, and yeah. Thank you all for watching, and hope to see you next time. Goodbye.